Trey Donaldson. Our question with this Michigan team has been point guard play. He made a huge shot late. What do you make of Michigan's last-second win over the Wisconsin Badgers today?
Yeah, that second half was absurd. Just completely absurd. I think we talked about Michigan getting their bite back yesterday and the physicality versus a physical Maryland team. And on ball, off ball cuts, on the glass, it didn't matter. They out-rebounded Maryland by 29 today. 29. And they were plus 14 in the paint. They, Maryland missed 12 layups and dunks. They weren't comfortable for the majority of the night, but when you grab hold of a game like that, like Michigan did, then the 19 turnovers for Michigan just doesn't really, it isn't as glaring as it would be in some of these other games that they've played where they haven't had this type of rebounding margin. But I talked about that second half. I mean, Wolf and Golden combined for 30 and 10. Queen had 20 himself. I mean, it was just haymaker after haymaker. I think we had 4 10-0 plus runs in that half alone. It was crazy. It was almost like who was going to make the last run, and it was fitting at the end where it kind of all crescendoed with that play from Donaldson, who, talking to him after the game, I asked him, just like playing next to Golden, I know you're a point guard, but it's unique because you got to kind of, space out at times and let them go two-man game. And then you have your moment at the end. It was crazy because he's the inbounder. There's no timeouts. It's very clearly something that they've repped in practice where you're going to have Burnett kind of dummy action, go over the top, got Gillespie's attention, and it pulled him away just enough for Golden to come back to the ball and flip it back to Donaldson. The one thing on that play I didn't understand was what Derek Queen was doing, because he was down court, and you would think you would want to stay in the middle somewhere to be able to, go one way or the other to guard the guy coming downhill. But he was all the way off to the side. I think Golden was his guy, but what a finish from Donaldson. I mean, those guys tried to recover over, and just the smallest guy on the floor being able to step in there and finish like that was impressive. We had a hell of a day there in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it was a great day for you. Tio, I know that we joke a lot about your dislike of the Big Ten, right? But I think you've come around. You've come fully around on the Big Ten this year, right?
You know what I've come to find out is after watching the Big Ten this year, I blame Zach Edey for all of my hatred that was the Big Ten. I no longer hate the Big Ten. He single-handedly changed the league because of how dominant he was. He single-handedly slowed down the entire league. Now, guys are playing quicker. They're playing faster. Michigan has a four-man that everybody loves to watch. Wisconsin, who I predicted to actually win the tournament, is fast. They're fun. John Tonje is awesome. It's a different league now. And I think throwing in a couple of extra teams on the West Coast just to mix up kind of the monotony that was Big Ten play there for a few years. Now, it hasn't always been that case, but there for a few years. I think it's actually really helped the league. And I think you've started to see subtle changes to make it more entertaining, because that hasn't been the case for a while. It's been slow. It's been a foul fest. They've put the games in the mud, and because that's where they play their best at for a long time, no longer the case. I mean, a lot of really fun teams to watch in that league.
Yeah, let's flip it, because one of those teams that's really fun to watch is the Wisconsin Badgers, Mike. And I want to hit you on that because they knocked off Michigan State.
How crazy is it that you say those words and they're accurate? Mm-hmm. Like, I like watching Wisconsin. The last time I said that was Frank the Tank and Sam Decker.
Yeah,
Mike,
what's crazier? The crazier part about that whole thing is the fact that, like, Chucky Hepburn would have been perfect. And now he's at Louisville doing the same thing that they're doing now. Like, where could that have been? And Wisconsin's good with some of these newer guys too. But, like, it's a fun team to watch. It's a fun brand of basketball. I think that's changed significantly. And I'll be honest, guys, I'm a buyer. I think the Big Ten will make a run in the tournament. Where besides Purdue, I think there's a chance for a couple of teams to make some noise, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's time,
Mike.
It's time. I mean, and the other thing too, Jeff, we talked about this on the Big Ten preview way before the season. I don't think I've mentioned it once this entire season, but it speaks to T.O.'s point. I think the Big Ten for a long time was the most overcoached league in America, and everything was to everything was to scheme against Edey, and if once Edey was out of the league, then how do we shift things over? The irony in it all is the Pac-12 teams that have come in are the ones that play slow. I watched Oregon try to go low possession against Indiana in that game. UCLA tries to pull a team into the mud. It's fascinating to see how that's changed over the years. And now Wisconsin is just, probably the most emblematic of it, where, they have 11 transition points a game this year, which is probably their most ever. Tio, I think we've talked about that before. And just their ability to create advantages and have 3 ball handlers on the floor at all time. And Klesmit coming back has been so huge for them. I think this was, and we can get into the nuts and bolts of this game today, but this was an insane.
Do it. Get into them, Mike. Get into those nuts and bolts. Let's do it.
Okay. Wisconsin, this was an insanely high level game today. Just chippy. It had all the makings of a single elimination tournament. It truly felt like, even though we have the big tournament coming up, both these teams played like their lives were on the line. And early on in this game, there was a Jace Richardson barrage that, sent the whole arena into a frenzy, and the Spartan fans were into it. And I think what was really interesting to see was, to start this game, and really for the majority of the game, Tom Izzo and that staff watched Wisconsin make 19 threes yesterday, and then came in today and said, you know what, all these dribble handoffs, ball screens that Wisconsin sets, we're going under them. We're going to show, and we're going to go under. And if you want to hit shots off the bounce, go ahead. And they looked at it. You're like, okay, Blackwell, 26% off the bounce from 3 this year. Klesmit, 30% off the bounce from 3 this year. Tanjay is the one guy who's 36% that you got to be a little bit more aware of. And I think the plan was, we're going to show and go under, because we need to cut off angles. It's an angles game at this point. We can't let them get into the paint. And as that game went on, when you have a guy with size and skill of John Tanjay, those dudes get to where they want to go, period. Doesn't matter what your coverage is. Some dudes are just able to overcome coverages. And that's what we saw. My favorite, outside of, the play at the end, you call it smart, call it not smart from Tanjay, worked out for him, certainly. But my favorite play of that game was Tanjay was on a heater, had all the attention of the Michigan State team. And who does he dial it up for at the end? John Blackwell. How does he do it? Blackwell's up top. They send Tanjay down to the block. And when Crowell runs up to set the screen, they're going to come up and twist that screen, right? We're going to act like we're set on one side. We're going to have Carson Cooper think that John Blackwell's coming off to the right, and he's really coming off to the left. So now you got no one there for the ball screen coverage. Akins is running into Cooper, and the lane is vacated because you put Tanjay below and had him almost like a roll replace coming back out to the top. It got Kohler's attention on the weak side guarding Gilmore, who, Kohler should have been midline to help. And it got Fear's attention because he's guarding Tanjay. So when Blackwell wins the matchup, it's a layup to make it 72-67 with 1:11 left. And that was really the game. So, with Tanjay at the end as well, that's I don't even know what he was doing. I guess he was trying to foul, but
it was the greatest stupid play I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, to try to make a steal there is the dumbest thing that you can do. But he actually went and he got it, and it was clean. That was one of those things where I'm sitting there like, oh my God, he just committed a foul on a 3. Oh, they didn't call a foul when he got fouled. Oh, he didn't actually foul. So that was
crazy in the arena. It was crazy in the arena. But then when everybody saw the replay up top, they were like, oh, yeah, it was clean.